man? Is it the power in his hands? Is it his quest for glory? Give it all you got to fight to the top.
Alright, that was a little bit of a long introduction, but I hope that all drove home the point of this video, because somewhere back around the 21st of December and the 22nd of December, maybe it was around the 24th or the 26th, not too sure, but there was a tournament, and it was a tournament hosted by DDukkarandom, who is a StarCraft YouTuber and streamer, and he hosted a tournament that was basically a set of expert 1v1 fastest map players had to smurf into a tournament, so they were all under anonymous names, and at the end of the tournament all names would be revealed. And it just so happened that StarCraft World's very own GoldSCV, aka Libagu, was playing under the name Destiny, and 100perwinner was StarCraft World's very own JH, aka Voss, and he is here under the name 100perwinner. And he is here playing the magenta Protoss on the bottom left corner of the map, whereas GoldSCV, aka Libagu, is here on the top middle of the map playing the blue Terran, and I'm going to switch up the colors a little bit, red versus blue. And basically the idea behind the tournament was that the Protoss gets a couple of nerfs. No mid building, and they're only allowed a single base, so they're not allowed to make a secondary base. They gotta play on one single base. No mid build, no cannons on middle, because honestly Protoss is one of the strongest races on fastest map and tends to win most matchups. And it's not even like what you could say Tesagi for the regular maps. It's like to the point where Protoss is supposed to win around 70% of all matches, maybe even 75% or 80% if players are about equally skilled. It's very, very hard in favor of Protoss. So they made a couple of nerfs, and these couple of nerfs should limit the Protoss to a couple of builds, which makes the early game a bit safer for the Terran, because there's no potential for a mid build, so no risk in going for higher economy starts like we're seeing here. Destiny is starting with a +1 command center after a 2 barracks start, because he knows that there's most likely not going to be a lot of early aggression coming out from JH, aka the red Protoss on the map. And because he knows that there's probably not a lot of early aggression coming out from JH, he's going for a very early +2 command center to extend his ability to make SCVs, get his economy up and running, and basically get a better transition into the post 7-minute portion of the game. Whereas 100perwinner is starting off with a build we see much more often, which is also one of the more standard builds. But there is a low chance he was going for a mid build, which puts a lot of pressure on the Terran. But if the Terran survives that one, the Terran gets a lot of counter potential. Yeah, pretty much standard build, but we'll mostly be seeing no cannons on middle, no expo for the Protoss, just one base PVT happening right here. And there are a couple of more rules included, but I will explain those rules after game number 1. So both players have found each other. Just the standard stuff of placing the Marines inside the choke to prevent anything from going out, or at least having information of something leaving the base. There are a single robotic facility and a pylon there being thrown down. Robotic facility, of course, being thrown out there to start up the early game, or well, you could call it the early game to mid game transition of having Reavers versus Marines, because Marines are one of the units that the Terran will have out the most in the early stages and the mid stages of the game. And the Reavers are just amazing against Marines, because Marines tend to be balled up. So having that Reaver shuttle micro ready and prepared to fight into the Terran Marine mass right around the point that the first tank will be coming out you can set yourself up for some very big early game success if you manage to kill a lot of Marines with the Reavers. Alternatively, as we often see, they can also opt for the Reaver drop, because they're going for a double robotic facility. Where is that support bay? I'm not seeing the support bay anywhere here. So he's first going for the Dragoon pressure, but there's a lot of Marines out here for Destiny, so the Dragoon pressure is somewhat falling flat. There's already bunkers there in the front, and the number of Dragoons is quite small, only 5 Dragoons, 2 bunkers with a lot of Marines, and Destiny even feels they can go back in and try to poke some, but in the process he winds up losing a couple of Marines. That wasn't too smart, because a smaller unit count really ends up hurting your ability to fight into that double Reaver. That is most definitely going to be coming out, because there is a robotic support bay now being placed and finished for JH. JH has set himself up for some success, because the Marine count is quite low now. He's got 4 Marines in those bunkers, but not all that much. He's already making a starport for a Wraith, because that Wraith can potentially snipe that shuttle. Or it can make a dropship and fly over a tank drop into the Protoss base and hurt the economy for the Protoss. The sniping the shuttle will definitely not work in this specific situation, because he went for Dragoons over Zealots. Most of the time people go for Zealots. They make a Citadel of Dune, which will shortly be followed by a Templar's Archive, but they make the Citadel of Dune and start the Zealot lag upgrade, and they match it with the double Reaver spawn. So by the time they reach about this point here with their Zealots and their double Reaver inside that shuttle, they get their Zealot lags up and can run straight in. But Destiny knows, well, GoldSCV knows that he is not facing that specific scenario, so he's already setting himself up for a drop defense game. But there's not going to be a drop defense happening anytime soon, because JH is setting himself up for the frontal pressure here. Well, that tank there is spaced about perfectly to zone that Reaver about away from those bunkers, I assume. Because now he's trying to go in, but those Dragoons are getting fire. And I assume he can even fire on the Reavers there, but the bunkers in the front there do go down. But that bunker stays alive. He can now free fire on... He cannot fly the shuttle in deeper, because there's a turret there, there's Marines there as well. He manages to kill a single tank, but GoldSCV is microing himself backwards deeper into his base quite well. This means that JH, losing one of those Reavers, losing most of his Dragoons, is forced to go for another option, which he's already preparing on setting up. Although he does not have a Templar's Archive just yet, he does have a Citadel of Dune, but Zealot lags have only just been started. Level 1 weapon upgrade for the ground forces are also on the way. And meanwhile, GoldSCV is setting himself up for, as I mentioned earlier, the drop defense. He's dropping here on the side, but it's a fake one. He's really trying to go in with this one. But GoldSCV notices. GoldSCV is now going for the shuttle. The shuttle gets sniped, but the Reaver gets to unload. The Reaver doesn't get a shut off. So he's just managing to clear out at least a couple of turrets here on the side. A couple of Marines as well. He's now trying to micro. He manages to save that shuttle. Manages to save the Reaver with the shuttle. But nothing significant has happened. GoldSCV is just going to be capable of ramping up even more thanks to that double command center. His base is still quite small. He's adding on factories, which he needs because he's going for that MAC transition. Because as I mentioned earlier, most of the options the Protoss has work really well into those Marines. Specifically Templars and Reavers. They are amazing against Marines. When those drop flies in, is he going to get to unload? Doesn't get to unload. So he buys himself more time to set himself up for success and for the potential counter at around the 12 or 15 minute mark. It really depends, because GoldSCV is one of those players who likes to sit in his base for a very long time to ensure that he's got everything that he needs and doesn't have to build and attack and fight at the same time. He's one of those players who just tends to like to build, play it very, very safe, get every single portion of his base covered and safe and secured to basically starve the Protoss from options. Which is what I think he's going to do now, because he plugged up the front really, really well. JH, once again, going to try to go for the frontal, for a shuttle, fly it in. He's still sticking to Reavers and Zealots. And he's found himself a hole here. Goes in. But the shuttle, once again, doesn't make it through because there's nothing to support the shuttle. Even the Reaver gets a Dutch shot off on the Academy and a couple of depots, but nothing of significance. Dragoons here being put on the side. Dragoons are still useful, even though there are tanks out there. Still useful to clear out vision on the sides here. Because as a Terran, you always want vision over the hills, which is what GoldSCV was doing with this engineering bay, hovering it on the hill, get himself extended vision. Now he's lost that vision. Let's give you an example of showing you what it looks like. First he had vision over here. Now he only has vision inside of those hills, or you can call them the base walls, which is crucial in denying when you're the Protoss, because you want those shuttles to get in, because those shuttles will only take damage once they reach this point. So denying that vision over the hills is crucial. But then it's also crucial to keep your scan energy on those sides at specific intervals, because you're expecting those shuttles. And just like this, the shuttles are going in, but only a couple of the shuttles manage to unload. Cells are going to try to clear out a couple of those Marines on the low ground, but the stim upgrade that GoldSCV has to take care of those Marines just dandy and fine. Although almost all the Marines there went down. Another shop already flying in here on the top side. Same route, same spot that he cleared some units out. He's going to try to fly in a little bit deeper. He's already making a new engineering bay to get vision over the hill. Goes in. Shuttle gets sniped. Templar didn't unload, so more time bought for GoldSCV. Another shuttle's already flying over the map on this side, and he's made mostly robotic facilities. He's not really adding on to his base, though his worker count is at quite a high point. Although he now starts adding on to his base, upgrades are on the way. Armor, shields, weapons. He needs all of those. Drop is gonna come in. Can he fish himself up some nice damage? He cannot. GoldSCV has been handling this like a boss, despite the limited amount of reaction time that he has on the sides of his base. Thanks to that vision denial that JH put up with those Dragoons on the sides there. No cannons in the front here though, so JH is going to have to deal damage very quickly, very soon, because the rule denying the Protoss cannons on the middle really does not give the Protoss any buffer zone or buffer time that the Terran has to go through with their tanks to push out and be able to waltz into the base of the Protoss. So with these rules, it is much more a race against the clock for the Protoss than it was previously. And he's not planning on going for carriers, it appears. He's planning on sticking to those gateway units and those shuttles, because he is not making a fleet beacon. And this is quite risky, because I honestly think that GoldSCV is one of the better players into drops. Although this drop here might fly in deeper. Reaver gets to unload. Reaver gets sniped before he gets shot off. Templars on the low ground. Templar also gets sniped. Great target selection and quick response there from GoldSCV, denying the storm. Keeping this drop play from JH to pretty much the least of effectiveness you could possibly imagine. This portion here has never been threatened. He hasn't even been forced to pull off his SCVs to safety as of yet. And GoldSCV opting to go for a camping option while still being able to throw out punches. Basically the dropship play. You can either dropship those tanks on the hills here, tanks on the hills here, which is very difficult for the Protoss to deal with, and also effectively threatens these robotic facilities here, right there in the front. You can land them there as well, or you can try to fly in and threaten the probes. But a lot of cannons are being thrown up for JH, because JH knows that GoldSCV likes to use dropships. But he's going to try nonetheless, because I see there's raids in the mix there. Raids will take fire away from those dropships, and those dropships will probably be able to fly in up to here. But JH already throwing out more cannons, because he knows that that is the most likely option. Otherwise, GoldSCV would probably already have moved out through the front. And I think these true drops are about to be happening at about the same time. He's now focusing on defending, because he's scanned those shuttles. Instead, he's just unloading here on the hill, and he's going to threaten the side of the base of JH here. This is a pretty smart move. Gives him a lot of pressure, and is going to keep JH busy for a little while. Drop comes in over here, though. And GoldSCV not responding all too well. Ooh, he manages to unload right on top of those minerals. Gets a bit of damage off. No, about 10 SCVs went down, but not too much. He's now attacking the command center. The command center is taking damage. He's going to have to repair that one. And actually, not that much damage has been dealt here. Although he's still attacking the command center, he's not repairing it. GoldSCV taking a huge risk here, but another drop already flying in. This time he's going to storm on those SCVs, but the Templar is just outside the range. The Templar managed to get the storm off, but only 4 of those SCVs go down. Not that much happening, although it was quite close. The siege AoE damage dealt a lot of damage to his own command center, and the Archon there hammering away as well, but not much is going on. So he's still just adding on upgrades, waiting for the upgrades to stack up and ramp up. He's already on 0-1. JH is on 1-1-2. He's got the lead on the upgrades there, so he's got that going for himself. But he hasn't really been able to deal much damage whatsoever. There's the fleet beacon, but he only confined himself to having only 5 of those stargates, so the layout of his base is not that optimal. He's been managing to land a couple of those shuttles here on the high ground, but these raids here have been denying those shuttles really well, so the shuttles have not been capable of loading all the way. Luckily though, those robotic shuttles are just outside of the range of those tanks, so he still has that going for him. He's gonna have to clear this out because he wants this space back. He's only confined to a single base, and knowing that JH is confined to a single base, knowing that GoldSCV is now big enough, he moves out and is going to pressure the front here because he feels he has the opportunity to push JH in and deal a finishing counter blow on the counter, knowing that JH has a lot of Psi infested in those shuttles, and those shuttles do fly in pretty much all the way to the minerals. They unload, but they storm nothing of significance. Pretty much no SVs there are going down. All SVs have been pulled to the side, now turning them into an Archon. But the real story is here in the front, where JH has effectively already lost the game because he's got nothing to fight into those tanks there. GoldSCV is not even sieging them up, just rolling them in very, very slowly, sieging them up now, right in the middle. Everything that spawns now is going to die to those tanks. And well played by GoldSCV, honestly it is. He's starting the first game very, very strong. Even sniping the shuttles now, denying JH the ability to land units on top of those tanks. Although he did unload a couple of them now. But most of the shuttles have gone down, most of the shuttles have been dealt with. And he's now pulling back a couple of his units, but this is pretty much a done game. He does have the upgrades over GoldSCV. GoldSCV now on 0-2, no armor. He's on 2-1-2. But I don't think that a little bit of difference in upgrades is going to make much of a difference. Even throwing up turrets now and has a vessel there, so Dark Templars have been taken out of the mix as well. He is trying though. But the Dark Templars don't achieve much. JH is trying to buy himself time, but he's not. Alright, he calls it GG. Tried to buy himself time, but realizes that it is futile. So he taps out, and the first game goes to GoldSCV, and the score 1-0. And let's go to game number 2 after taking a quick look at the endgame stats. Even though they're not very significant. Although in this specific case, it does detail an inability for JH to really deal any damage whatsoever at any stage in the game. So GoldSCV handled himself really well. Or maybe JH went for a really predictable drop pass, where GoldSCV pretty much just had to place his Marines in the right spot and stim and target the shuttles. So it was never under much threat at any point in the game. Minerals, even though he went for the +2 command center at the start, the mineral discrepancy is still heavily in favor of JH. But he managed to achieve nothing with it despite spending 2,000 more minerals, because the point with Terran is saving up your tanks and staying alive. So let's throw up one of the images. This one or this one? I'll throw up this one. Doesn't really matter which image I throw up. I can just throw up any image I want. Right. So game number 2. And there is another rule involved in this tournament, and namely that is that you don't get to play the same matchup twice in a row. And because you don't get to play the same matchup twice in a row, if you lose, you get to pick the next matchup. Basically, you don't get to play the same matchup twice in a row, and the loser gets to pick the next matchup. And because Destiny, aka GoldSCV, played Terran versus Protoss in the first game, we're now going to be seeing a Terran versus Protoss. But this time we have JH on this both players are on the exact same spot. But the races have been swapped. So Terran versus Protoss for JH. Red Terran on the bottom corner of the map. GoldSCV top middle, blue Protoss. Now let's hide this. so we don't spoil the length of the game. And speed up the first portion, because the first portion is not that interesting. But I am expecting a little bit different. A little different of a build from JH here. He starts off with the barrack first. Because that allows you to have a marine out faster than if you went with a depot first. The downside is though, it gets supply stuck for a little while. As you can see here. Now it's unclogged the supply line. It's like 5 or 4 seconds of being supply stuck. I personally don't like the feel of it because it takes me out of the flow. But the more you play it, the more you get used to it. So he starts off with 3 barracks, unlike what GoldSCV did. GoldSCV starting off with 2 gateways, unlike what JH did, who started out with a single gateway and a forge and a +1 nexus. So GoldSCV is planning on using that +2 gateway to send out zealots out into the map and keep the pressure up on JH, which should rob JH of any counter aggression for the early stages of the game, given the fact, or given the condition, that GoldSCV manages to kill Marines. As long as JH manages to keep his Marines alive, GoldSCV should not be able to put too much pressure on him. The moment JH starts losing Marines, GoldSCV basically already wins the game, because the smaller the Marine count, the harder that initial tech is going to hit from GoldSCV, because we're going to be seeing him going for a double gas and a cybernetics core, and most likely a double robotic facility out here in the front for that double reaver push that JH tried to do in the last game, but JH tried to do it with Dragoons. Whereas I think GoldSCV is going to try to do it with Zealots, because he already has Zealots out, which means he's going to have to invest into more Zealots, because it's quite expensive to make them, and he wouldn't be able to afford Cybernetics Core with the Singularity Charge, given he wants to go for, well, given he wanted to go for that build, but he's not wanting to go for the build, he's going for the +2 Nexi. No cannons here in the front. It's a very, very late forge, because he started the forge after the +2 Nexus. And JH already tried to feel up the map to try and go offensive, because he knows that he can go aggressive here. Because that's a late forge, a single cannon. He's making an academy. He's waiting for the academy. If he had made the academy earlier and not opted for this very early +1 command center and this very early +2 command center, he could have opted for a very aggressive playstyle here. Keeping that Marine there in the top corner. Smart move, because information is king. As long as you know what the opponent is doing, you can always adapt and prepare for it, or even counterattack if the information dictates or allows for that to be possible. So the academy is close to finishing. After the academy finishes, I'm expecting a medic and a stim upgrade, because that would open up a lot of offensive abilities for him, because there's a second cannon being up now. But those 12 Marines shouldn't be capable of fighting into those 6 Zealots. I assume GoldSCV is not GoldSCV response, and he pulls back, knowing it's a little bit too late. He's going to try to rely on that cannon. JH pulls back. There's not much in him, not much in it for him. There's a double robotic facility. Cybernetics core there as well. No Citadel of a Dune. So he's not going for speed, I assume. He's going for a third robotics. Very much, if you don't see a Citadel of a Dune, you can assume there's going to be a third robotics, or at least some mix-up in the build order for the Protoss. And GoldSCV likes to go for slightly different builds. No cannons being added on here in the front. Medics have finished up. A 3 barrack pump, if unopposed, really does manage to stack up the Marine count quite quickly. He's already on 6 and 12, 18 Marines. Factory's been added on. Starport has been added on as well for that dropship or for the Wraith. Entirely depends on which ones, what he wants to do. If he wants to go for a very early drop or wants to go for the anti-shuttle Wraith, because he's going to need that at some point in the game. There's a support bay. No Citadel of Dune. He's really planning on relying on just those Reavers. But JH here is balling up his mass, and there's only 2 cannons there in the front. And he's going to touch and feel if he can go in. He knows he can go in because he only sees 2 cannons. There's a couple of Zealots there in the front as well. Zealots, a little bit of a delayed response. Zealots forced to pull back. Zealots dying. Zealots finally do manage to attack all of the Marines, but the Marines just way too strong there. And looks like GoldSCV miscalculated the situation of the game and the state of the game because he's lost his front there. And there's no Reavers out, and he's gonna lose those Dragoons there as well. JH has more Marines on the rendezvous. And on the way there, tanks on the way as well. Siege mode is also on the way. He's just gonna keep hammering here in the front. And GoldSCV going for no Citadel of Adun, no Templars Archive, has robbed himself of the ability to defend himself with Dark Templars. He should have honestly just made more cannons there in the front. He was really trying to cut corners there, saving himself minerals for other stuff. But sometimes saving yourself minerals for other stuff means that you cannot defend yourself. You're putting yourself and you're exposing yourself to potential danger, as we're seeing here. SCV's already being pulled over to build those bunkers or the turrets. He's going for a bunker. This one is going to be also a bunker, 2 bunkers there. I assume he knows that there's no Citadel of Adun at all. Another bug is being made there in the back, and GoldSCV calls the GG knowing that the tank has arrived, and once the tank has arrived, you cannot defend yourself any longer. So yeah, this is basically a very valuable lesson for everyone. Don't risk it. Don't risk it. Like, if your opponent is going to be very passive and you're 100% sure your opponent is going to be passive, you can of course risk it, because then you kind of know that, I'm not going to get punished for cutting corners. But here, JH is one of those players who will constantly try to go out there, do some recon, touch and feel on the edges. Can I go in? Is there something I can do? Is there a weakness exposed that I can abuse? And just there, that constant moving his Marines up and to and fro here in the front, and having that scan out there exposed the fact that GoldSCV only had 2 cannons there in the front. JH knew, so JH went for it. Smart move from JH. Seeing, always thinking, and always analyzing what his options are. And for such a short game, the score doesn't really matter all that much. So I'm gonna throw up the image to prevent spoiling the result. So the score 1-1, and this time around GoldSCV gets to pick the races for game number 3. And in game number 3, we are going to a Protoss versus Zerg. A Zerg versus Protoss, actually. That is an odd pick. Maybe GoldSCV wants to have that matchup out of the way, because it is a best of 7. I think it's a best of 7. I think GoldSCV wants that matchup out of the way so he doesn't get it later down the line. So he's throwing himself at the wolves in a Zerg versus Protoss. Really interesting choice here. Really interesting choice. But I'm wondering to see how it's going to work out for GoldSCV here, because he does have a very good Zerg versus Protoss. But on the other hand, JH also has a very good Protoss versus Zerg. And given that the both players are right next to each other here, this might work out. This is definitely going to work out in favor of JH, because both players are so close to each other. He's even starting off with 3 gateways. The distance towards here is basically a mid-build distance. So he has almost all the advantages of a mid-build, but the safety of building close and compact within his own base. So if things do go wrong, he can go for a forge and make cannons really close and compact and protect all of his buildings with just a couple of cannons right here, which should disallow GoldSCV offensive capabilities, at least with the Zerglings. But yeah, so basic start. Hatchery there in the choke. He's going to plug up the hole with 2 sunguns here on the side. He's not one of those players who makes 2 hatcheries next to each other, like something that Lovely Rabbit likes to do, making 2 hatcheries next to each other. And the scout is going to be a little bit late because he started off going counterclockwise instead of clockwise. But on the benefit of going counterclockwise with the probe and clockwise with the zealot means that he's gonna meet this choke here pretty much unannounced. So pretty much out of the blue, the zealot comes in, but there's Zerglings already being made there for GoldSCV, because GoldSCV knows that at least something's gonna happen. And if you have those Zerglings out, you can also go for offensive moves with those Zerglings. And he's managed to protect that one. Choke comes up. JH forced to pull back. Probe being sent back to his base. Some 4 gateways. That's a lot of gateway unit investment. But it does give him a lot of fighting power in the early stages of the game. And I just know, I'm 100% sure he's going to try to fish for a frontal attack here. Even those 5 Zealots can deal a lot of damage here in the front, because there's only 3 Sunkens, and both of the Sunkens already had some damage taken. Zerglings are being made anew for GoldSCV. The Sunkens there in the front manage to stay alive. He's making 2 more there in the front. He's putting them in front of the other 2 Sunkens to make it harder to get access to the 2 back Sunkens, one of which already has taken some damage. More Zealots are balling up. He's adding on a +1 Nexus because he needs that economy running for the mid stage and the late stage of the game, because if he doesn't make that +1 Nexus, his probe count is going to be way too low, which also means his economy is going to be way too low in the post 10-minute phase of the game. Whereas the Zerg, if untouched, will ramp up beyond the 70 or 80 drone mark at around the 8 or 9 minute point in the game, if untouched. That is a condition, if untouched. And will then ramp up way too big and beyond the possibility for the Protoss to fight into. But GoldSCV is biting off more than he can chew, because he's throwing away his first line of defense there, namely his Zerglings, because those Zerglings would do an amazing job in helping keep those Zealots away from those Sunkens. And now he's just using the Zealots that just spawned to fight those Zerglings off. And the front here is exposed because all those Sunkens are just taking damage from those Zealots, and more Zealots are on the way. 4 Zealots still hammering away on those Sunkens. 2 more Sunkens are on the way, but they haven't finished yet, and he's gonna get a lot of damage down on this one. It's pretty much close to dying, and this one's also close to dying. There's a couple of Zerglings now coming into the mix, but more Zealots are on the way. Now those Zealots are just ignoring the Sunken and the Zerglings and going straight for the drones. GoldSCV making a huge lapse in judgment here. If he had kept those Zerglings near his Sunkens, he could have used those Zerglings to at least block or do some additional damage to the Zealots, and he would definitely have not lost those Sunkens here in the front, because his choke is now effectively get down. JH didn't even have to try anything fancy, didn't have to rely on tech, he just had to rely on his gateway units, and those gateway units are doing an amazing job at taking down GoldSCV's front. GoldSCV taps out because he knows that he cannot fight against JH without that choke up, and there's just going to be a stream of more Zealots non-stop, adding on to the number of Zealots he already has here. So GoldSCV taps out. Score now 2-1 for JH. JH built himself a really nice lead over GoldSCV there, but he does not have a lot of good matchup left for himself. And I do think you can play a matchup again. I think it's just the other player gets to pick matchups. Not sure what the specific rules were, because the rules were in Korean. Just I've heard a couple of rules from a friend who said that the other player gets to pick the matchup. Still a little bit puzzling why GoldSCV would pick Zerg versus Protoss, but at least he's got that one unfavorable matchup out of the way. So let's go into the next game, which is a reverse of the previous game. We have JH on the Zerg, and we have GoldSCV on the Protoss, and I really wonder if this one will yield slightly different results than the previous one. We've got the Zerg, so it's somewhat of a cross-map situation, both players on a corner spot. Here we have GoldSCV on the bottom right corner of the map, and JH on the top right corner of the map. Gonna speed up the early phase just a little bit, using this overload to scout the sides. Some players like to send it out into the middle of the map, so they can find a mid build if the Protoss does decide to mid build. But it is very uncommon for the Koreans to mid build against Koreans. So might as well send it out to the side and potentially scout the location of your opponent. And he starts off with a +1 Nexus. And JH starts off with a +1 hatchery inside of his base. No choke. And whether this will work out in his favor or not, we'll see it unfold in the next couple of minutes. Because GoldSCV is one of those players who likes to scout only the entrances if he's playing against a Zerg, because he knows that the chance of a Zerg building a hatchery inside of his choke to choke up and block off the front is really, really high. And just as I mentioned, he's scouting just the chokes, because in theory, you have a high chance of saving yourself a lot of scouting time if you scout only the entrances. Whether he's going to scout all the entrances or if he's going to scout some full spots, that I do not know. But as of yet, it's looking like a pretty bad situation for him, as he's in the past already gotten cheesed by only scouting the chokes and the opposing Zerg going for mass Zerglings out of nowhere and catching him off guard. So 3 gateways. There is the Forge. No Cybernetics Core is out just yet. He's just going to rely on those gateway units first. But yeah, he hasn't found the choke. And I assume that he's just going for the full scouts at this point. Because the Zealot is going in here. They scouted the choke here. So he now knows that there's no hatchery. He now knows that the Protoss, the Zerg went for a non-choke build. And given that JH is already on 3 hatcheries and is almost matching the worker count that GoldSCV has, JH has himself a really good shot here if he manages to not take any damage from those Zealots that are now out on the map. More Zealots are on the way. Cannons are being made. There's a single cannon being made there. Cybernetics Core is going to be thrown down here. And I expect him to be throwing out another gas as well. One of the best options to go for when you are playing against a non-choke Zerg is to just mass out Zealots and get Storm, and probably a couple of Dragoons in the mix as well. And of course you get a weapon upgrade or an armor upgrade. In this case you're going for a weapon upgrade on those Zealots so that they deal a little bit more damage to the Zerglings. So Zerglings die in, I think, just 2 hits instead of 3 hits. Or it's always 2 hits, because that's 6, yeah, it's 3 hits. 16, 16, and then 3. See, they would theoretically still die in 3 hits. But at least everything else is a little bit faster. Specifically Hydralisks, I think, go down from 4 hits to 3 hits. Right, so he's going to throw down a couple of Sunkens because he knows he's got to defend himself, because he knows those Zealots are out there on the map, but he's making a lot of Zerglings, and those Zerglings, being quite fast, are making their way through, because he went for Zergling speed. Those Zerglings now making their way over the map, but there's pretty much nothing he can do with those Zerglings, so that is a little bit of a poor investment. Because there's cannons here, and those Zerglings are not going to kill those cannons, because more Zealots are about to be spawning, and those Zealots will definitely assist in keeping those Zerglings away. Although, right, those Zealots are leaving his base, but the cannons are doing a good job of deterring those Zerglings, and now that misinvestment is going to be hurting a little bit at home, because now there is no additional Zerglings to fight against those Zealots. More Zerglings are now spawning. There's a Hydralisk Den being placed there, but it's a very poor placement because it's now put in harm's way. GoldSCV decides against going in. 4 extra hatcheries have been added on. More Sungus being thrown down. Adding on another gas because he needs that extra gas income after he goes for that Hydralisk speed upgrade. Some people like to go for Hydralisk range. Others like to go for Hydralisk speed. Alright, he managed to snipe the Citadel of Adun. So that does slow down the Templar's Archive. And it slows down Zealot lag. So that buys JH a little bit more time to get bigger. Because the Protoss needs those Zealot lags to fight against Hydralisks and against those Zerglings. And the Protoss also needs those Storms and Templars. But we won't be seeing them anytime soon yet. So in response, he's adding on another robotic facility, adding on a support bay, and he's probably going for Reavers. Those Reavers would be out faster than either the Zealot lags or the Storms. Adding on more gateways because he knows those gateway units are imperative in a PvZ against a non-choked Zerg. Because the Zerg is going to be relying on a lot of those Hydralisks, and there's no wall in the front to protect them. It's basically the Zerg tries to get a little bit of an economic advantage, because going for a hatchery in the choke means you're going for a hatchery, pool, hatchery, and on this current build he did hatchery, hatchery, pool, hatchery, and risked on a single Sunken in his base, which allowed him to get up that 4th extra hatchery way quicker than he would usually get it. More hatcheries being thrown down. Now he's moving more drones to get more defensive, static defense. But those Hydralisks are fighting into those Zealots quite well. I honestly think that GoldSCV could just try to turn around, but he really wants those Zealot lags. He really wants those Reavers to assist. Already on 10 gateways, only 7 minutes into the game, and almost has all of his tech up. Still no Templar's Archive. He really is investing all out on those Reavers. Smart choice there, because Reaver micro with that shuttle against Hydralisks can be really, really deadly. JH might be overextending a little bit with those Hydralisks there. He's gonna sending out more Hydralisks. He's gonna be pumping from all of his hatcheries on 39 drones. And he's trying to go for it, and he managed to kill the Reaver. Another shuttle stays alive. Reaver stays alive as well. Reaver is going to get a shot off on those Hydralisks, and the Hydralisks all do go down. That means he's lost 12 Hydralisks there, and the Hydralisk there goes down as well. That means he's already lost a lot of his investment into this Hydralisk very early into the game, and now the speeded Zealots are moving out en masse. Reaver in the shuttle, another Reaver in shuttle. Alright, he managed to snipe a robotic facility, so that Reavers that were in there got cancelled. And in response, GoldSCV throws down more gateways, knowing he has to just completely rely on gateway units at this point. Still no Templar's Archive, although the Templar's Archive is being thrown there in the bottom, where it cannot be sniped by Hydralisks. GoldSCV now running his Zealots into the Sunkens. Hydralisks, of course, behind the Sunkens to create more distance for those Zealots to travel. But the Zealot lags really make that little bit of extra distance not all that harmful for the Zealot HP bars. Now forced to micro backwards, already a Spire up and running there for Scorches against drops or Mutalisks against Zealots and Reavers. He's got those two options. He's making both Scorches and Mutalisks at the same time. But those Zealots have cleared out a huge chunk, a large chunk of the Hydralisks that JH had there in his base, and a lot of the Sunkens here in the front have also gone down, so he's managed to gain some ground. He's going to be forcing JH to spend a lot of minerals on the static defense. Whereas GoldSCV pretty much managed to ramp up his probe count up to 66 at this point. And he's going to be making more probes up until he's reached about 75 or 76. Another 10 gateways finished up here. I really like this configuration. 10, 10. You think of it like blocks of 10. Well, here's blocks of 5 and block of 5. Anyway, this way your units can very easily leave the base. And you can all rally them or not rally them, really up to you. He's now mixing it up with Dragoons. He's got level 2 armor, level 1 armor, so not level 2 weapons, but level 1 armor on the way as well. So slowly getting them upgrades one by one, slowly building that advantage, because JH has no evolution chamber. He's going to be stuck on 0-0 for his Hydralisk for quite a long time. Scorches are out. Scorches, great timing for the shuttle sniping. The shuttle sniping might be a little bit difficult, but the shuttle is protected by those Dragoons. He's going to try to go for it, and he manages to micro away from the Scorches just in time. And in the case that the Scorches did manage to reach the shuttle, he managed to unload both Reavers as well. Great awareness, great micro, because that was pure reaction time. He doesn't have vision. Alright, the shuttle did go down, but he managed to unload a single Reaver. Reaver stays alive there in the back. Now the mass of Dragoons is moving in. He's completely maxed out. JH is on only 90 supply against the maxed out supply for GoldSCV. GoldSCV now spreading his Dragoons out to get more of those Dragoons firing on the static buildings from JH, but also to get a surround on those Hydralisks. The Hydralisks are holding themselves pretty well, but the 1-1 upgrade that GoldSCV has managed to build himself here is really doing miracles against that 0-0 from JH. But JH manages to stay alive, but GoldSCV's supply count is already back to almost being maxed out because he's got 20 gateways pumping out units very, very quickly, and the single Reaver Shuttle micro combo with the robotic facility pumping them out is also adding to that mass ability just a little bit more. Right, so most units here constantly being cleared out for JH. JH not really being able to build onto his base all that much. He's really built himself into a corner, literally, and given GoldSCV a huge opening to just keep going in through. Now he's redirecting his Zealots. There's 2 Lurkers out there. Lurkers have not been buried out. There is an observatory out for GoldSCV. He's making an observer there as well. The Lurkers now cleaning out the ground units. The Zealots here trying to take out the Sunken. He's just completely ignoring those Lurkers by going around and focusing on things to fight against on other places on the map. Templar there in the mix, but the Templar cannot reach the most crucial point, the drones. And he's just storming on top of those Lurkers now. Create target selection, given that he cannot reach this point and the Templar would probably otherwise die. And JH manages to fight it off with half the supply that Destiny has. Templar gets sniped. Good pickup. Not gonna let that Templar get energy for another storm. Yeah, the game just drags on little bit, but another huge mass of units streaming out for GoldSCV. He's not getting upgrades at the moment because he cannot afford it. Only using the 5 gas to make a lot of Dragoons is costing him all of his gas. Mostly also Zealots and Templars being mixed in as well. Now going for another frontal attack here. This time it's a lot of units. Observer was not brought over, or the Observer got sniped, but he manages to storm a Lurker, so 1 Lurker got down. But most of his highlights there in the back doing a great job. There's all these tiny little bottlenecks for those Zealots to go through. And this Templar, no energy, so no storm danger. There is the Observer. Observer managed to make its way in. A lot of Templar there on the top side there, but most of the units on the ground here now being cleared out because those upgrades have not been finished yet. And GoldSCV is just going to be gaining ground little tiny bit by tiny bit. No storm by the Templar. This Templar does have storm. Templar is going to try to go for the minerals for the drones, but the Lurkers finished up, so he stormed the Lurkers instead, knowing that the Templar's life is forsaken. Templar actually manages to make it out alive, miraculously. So JH once again stays alive, 30 minutes into the game. It's way closer than it looks though here for JH. JH has a very small unit count and he's pretty much just been making units non-stop. He's only added on 6 drones in the entire last 7 minutes. Which goes to speak volumes about the amount of pressure GoldSCV is throwing out at him here. GoldSCV has not felt the need to add on to his base because he knows that he can just very gradually gain ground on JH here because his production ability is just way greater than JH's. Over about 22 gateways against about 9 hatcheries in total. You can already spot the difference in there. But JH managing to hold on. Although this is the end here. This has to be the end because now he's just been overpowered. Templars have free access to the drones here. This Templar was about to storm. Once he got here, it would have been able to get the storm off. Those drones would have died unless they... Or they would have had to dodge. But having them dodge is also a huge loss for JH because he's losing mining time. And he simply does not have enough hatcheries to keep making Hydralisks. Nor does he have the Overlords to fill out his max. So great game plan from GoldSCV. Basically War of Attrition where you slowly starve your enemy. And you starve them in the sense of you get a bigger mass non-stop. And eventually your mass is just being replaced faster. So you're bigger than them and you overrun them. Which is what happened here basically. It does take amazing macro-micro ability. As we can see, GoldSCV is playing on 372 APM. Although it probably fluctuated between 330 and 372. His EAPM must have been really off the charts. But yeah, pretty nice game. But also goes to show why going for a non-choke Zerg can be very risky. Because, well, you pretty much are going to fall behind. All Protoss has to do is mass out units. Mass out a lot of them. And he's going to be bigger than you at some point. Oh, there's the image. Actually, this might be interesting to show the endgame stats for just this specific game. Well, every single statistic is in favor of GoldSCV, of course, because he killed a lot of more units. Well, we killed about the same units here. About the same units. But his units were more expensive. So I guess that's why the score is that much higher. Whereas JH's units were much cheaper. A lot of Sunkens, mostly Sunkens. Pretty much no hatches went down. It's all Sunkens that went down. A lot of buildings constructed. Mostly pylons, of course, and gateways. And yeah, a lot of minerals mined. Which is where you see the biggest difference in the ability for Protoss to just keep ramping up on the double or triple nexus as compared to the Zerg that has to either decide between drones or Hydralisks. And you can see here in the mineral spend, 16,000 mineral difference, or well, mineral / gas difference in how much they spend. But there's also 16,000 difference in how many he mined. Well, that goes to show the difference there. So yeah, let's go into the next game. The score is now 2-2. And for game number 5, we are going to a Terran versus Protoss with JH, who lost the previous game, now gets to decide which matchup they're going to play. So he picked himself the Protoss. against GoldSCV's Terran. And he's already lost this matchup once, which does spell a lot of trouble for GoldSCV here, because GoldSCV, I mean, it spells a lot of good news for GoldSCV, because GoldSCV knows that he can win this, because he's already done so before. Whereas JH also won the matchup, but because of other reasons. Basically, JH pulled off a full and complete Protoss versus Terran plan, whereas GoldSCV just tried to cut corners and got caught before he could even execute his plan. So that's a huge difference in how they won and what the win implicates for future games. Because knowing you can pull off a win against the Protoss with Terran, while the Protoss is executing their entire game plan, but not getting any results, then you know with a Terran, I can do this. I can fight them. I can overcome this. So yeah, JH started off with a +1 Nexus, then added on the Forge and a Gateway pylon there in the front. Then he went for the Forge, then a pylon in the front, then the Gateway here, then back to the front for the cannon. It all times out perfectly. By the time your probe gets back to the front, the pylon finishes, and you have about 150 minerals to make that cannon. So then he goes for the +2 simulators. There's the second Gateway, a little bit early, but JH likes to have more units out on the map because he's going for that single cannon here in the front. If he went for a single Gateway Zealot pump, he wouldn't have enough Zealots to fight against a potential threat in the front. So he's going for the double Gateway for the double Zealot pump. But a single cannon here in the front has me worried just a little bit. At least it would worry me if GoldSCV didn't go for the exact same build of 2 barracks, 2 command centers, and 2 gas. So he's really risking it, economically speaking. But he's also not risking it at all. He's just taking his time, taking the opportunity to go for the +2 command center very early on in the game, so he can keep matching the worker count of the Protoss. Well, the Protoss, of course, will until about the 450 minute mark still be ahead in worker count. After that, the Terrans should be ahead of the Protoss, given the very early +2 command center timing, which should also give him a way stronger transition into the post 7 to 10 minute game than it would if he went for a later +2 command center here, or for 3 barracks into a +2 command center, because then the command centers would be delayed by a little bit. There is the Academy coming down, Engineering Bay for detection against Dark Templars. Zealot makes its way in. That's pretty big information that JH is going to be getting here, and GoldSCV didn't spot it. He did not spot the Zealots, so the Zealots is going to walk in and probably going to attack those Zealots there, which GoldSCV is not going to like. He already manages to save the SCV. That's good. And the Zealot gets clipped a little bit. It kills a single SCV, but now it's going to get attacked by those Marines. Goes down. But more importantly, Cybernetic Score has finished. Citadel of Adun has finished. And 2 robotic facilities here also have been placed. There is, once again, no robotics support bay. That's a little bit worrying. There's the robotic support bay, but it came out way too late. Way too late. Because now the timing is going to be all messed up. All messed up. There's the scan. He knows there's a little bit of information here. He knows the shuttle has finished. I assume he thinks the support bay finished faster as well. But we're going to be having a delayed double reaver here, because of the very late support bay placement. Zealot lags are on the way though. So that already spells that he's going for the frontal Zealot lag speed attack, combined with 2 reavers to push on the front here. And in response to the scan, GoldSCV is already throwing out depots here in the front. But he starts off a little bit cutting corner-ishy, because he's using only a single SCV to make depots. Some players like to throw down 3 depots at the same time, but that means there's 3 SCVs going to the front. And as I mentioned before, it's about the 540 mark. So GoldSCV is now jumping ahead of JH in SCV count. We do have to, of course, add to that the inability to make SCVs while the scans are making. But having a double scan out is very, very useful. There's already 2 starports out. He's making raids against the shuttles. And here we can see that he has about... So on this build that JH is doing specifically, you have about 10 zealots finished up at this point in the game. 4 more zealots are on the way. He has shuttle speed on the way, but shuttle speed is not necessary at the moment. He just needs those 2 reavers. And he's going for the frontal attack because he walks into a wall of depots. And there's the 2 reavers. The 2 reavers are unopposed because zealots cannot attack the air. So the 2 raids there in the air, forcing the reavers to unload on the ground and stay on the ground, which denies the reaver shuttle micro ability for the Protoss. And JH actually managed to break through here, managed to take down all of the tanks and the marines there. But the bunker is still a threat, so he's forced to recede and go for other options. Which means those zealots do get chased down. So he did manage to pull off part of his plan, which is to break through the front. But those 2 raids really denied him the ability to turn that into a game-ending move. Well, that goes to show the value of those raids. Having those raids out really denies the shuttle from being used for Reaver shuttle micro to prevent damage on the Reaver. Being forced to unload the Reaver on the low ground, the Reavers are going to die at some point. Way faster than if he had that shuttle to micro it with. Now he's just going to clear out the side here. Or draw those marines away from the Reaver here. Going to unload the Reaver. He's going to try to get damage off on those marines. Gets a great shot off on those marines. But now the raids come in to take down the Reaver. And the Reaver goes down. Not much has been achieved for JH because GoldSCV honestly handled that like a boss. This is textbook handling with this specific build that JH did. Important part of it, of course, is the non-stop scanning that GoldSCV has been doing to keep himself informed, although he's been letting that scan energy jump up. This one is on low energy, this one is jumping up. So he has been storming a lot. Alright, shuttle goes in, but once again, he picks the wrong path. No Corsair to assist, so he can fly in over the top corners. Instead has to find for a hole. And GoldSCV, being smart, keeps his raids in somewhat of a neutral position so he can respond very quickly to shuttles. He's again trying the same path, but it's just a shuttle with a single Templar in it. He flies into some turrets, manages to storm the marines in the low ground, so at least managed to deal some damage. So the drop is not completely wasted, but that's the minimal result that you want. The minimal, and minimal is honestly not good enough. Not against a player like GoldSCV, who has such a strong Terran, such strong defensive ability, and most of all, very strong reaction times, fast reaction times, and good raid views. So he's really been setting himself up for success once again. JH incapable of putting even the slightest dent into whatever GoldSCV has. Although I do have to admit, what GoldSCV is doing is on a knife's edge. He likes to play it on a knife's edge because that means it's the most efficient, basically. You get the most advantage out of what you're doing if it works. And it's working perfectly here because he managed to snipe those shuttles with just single shots. So that's 8 raids. Now 9, but it was 8. That's a single volley on a shuttle. So those shuttles go down with just targeted fire, and he manages to clear out a little bit of the side here. JH is now also going for a frontal attack because there's no siege tanks there in the front. But GoldSCV responds very quickly because he unsieges and moves those tanks up to the front so that those Dragoons cannot fire on those depots without getting fired on themselves. It's very smart, very good move GoldSCV did there, making sure those tanks are within range of the Dragoons. Tries to go for the bunker because that bunker had fire bats in it. You remember that one. So now the fire batted bunker is down, but there's another bunker right next to it where the fire bats can go into. So not all that much gained. But he did take down his depots, and his depots being down means that Destiny, aka GoldSCV, is now supply blocked. Another drop here, flying on the bottom side, but the engineering base spots it out. GoldSCV responds, snipes the shuttle. Shuttle is gone with a single volley. No drop. Once again, makes its way through. And once again, JH not going for carriers here. He's going for just those gateway units, and I'm not liking it. This is a cross-map game, and gateway units on a single base are not as strong as you want them to be. Specifically, when your drop game is not working out whatsoever. Because not a single drop here from JH has managed to do anything. There he's taking out more stuff. So this is the phase of the game where GoldSCV knows he no longer needs gateway barrack units. So he's lifting up those barracks, getting himself vision on the sides and replacing that space with factories. Because factories, as oftentimes already mentioned, factory units are way better against Reavers and Templars, whereas Marines are not that great against Reavers or Templars, or Cannons for that matter. Just mass tanks and Raids is way better, or Goliaths into the mix. And he tries to go over the front, but once again he manages to snipe the Templars, the shuttles. Templars do get storms out on the low ground, because there's only tanks behind there, behind that wall. Tanks stay alive. So once again, great hold from GoldSCV. JH not managing, once again, to get himself any advantage. He has a Fleet Beacon here. Fleet Beacon is not researching anything. He's on 201 upgrades. GoldSCV. I keep saying JH. GoldSCV is still on 00, but he's making all of his armories now. He's got both those ground mech upgrades on the way. This time, though, the shuttle manages to fly in over a spot where the Raids might not be able to reach, but the Raids reach just in time. Shuttle goes down, second shuttle goes down, third shuttle goes down. Gets a storm off on nothing. Well, a single poor Marine there went down, but not that significant. 5 command centers, because he wants all the gas covered, but also wants really great bounce back ability on getting hit by a drop. His bank is floating up high, and the game is looking really dire. It's going to be looking like a repeat from one of the earlier games where JH wasn't able to do any damage, and then GoldSCV just went for the counter, and the counter rolled him over. I really feel that's going to be happening this game as well, because as I mentioned at the start of this video, no mid build, no expo for the Protoss. Maybe those nerfs were a little bit too much. Maybe they were a little bit too much. Because JH is not getting results. And once again, he's flying into the path of those raids. GoldSCV is going to respond to that, of course. The shuttles actually get responded to a little bit late, but that shuttle is empty. He had just Zealots in there. Just Zealots. He's going to try to clear out ground stuff, but given the amounts of tanks that are spread out all over GoldSCV's base, no results gained, once again. JH using the Dragoons that he still had to clear out those barracks on the sides to deny GoldSCV some vision. He should have done it earlier. It's a little bit late for that, because GoldSCV's already managed to nestle himself into a really stronghold that I don't think GoldSCV can break into anytime soon. This drop gets spotted out. Raids do not move, but he doesn't even have to, because there's only a single Corsair to assist the drop in. And the Corsair died really quickly. Shuttles died really quickly as well. The front is here is being sieged, but to no success. Templars don't get their storms off. JH is not having his day. JH is having a really bad day here. GoldSCV is defending this pretty much as well as you can defend any of this. This is really well defended. And JH is not achieving results. That's a poorly executed shuttle unload on top of tanks. We've seen that done better. JH, I think, is getting tilted a little bit here because nothing is working. And given the rules that they are under, I think he's feeling a lot of pressure here. A lot of pressure. More Corsairs coming out. He's just filling out his base, but he needs to deal damage. And given that there's so many turrets here on the side for GoldSCV, I don't see JH dealing any damage anytime soon. He did lose the side vision here. I'll highlight right here. He lost the side vision. But he's using his scans. He scans the front. So his units there. Scans this drop load up portion here of JH's base. Sees the drops are being loaded up, so he knows he has to prepare himself. He's just going to sit tight, wait for that drop to arrive, and snipe the shuttles. And once those shuttles are sniped, he's going to go for the attack. Dropships here, once again, being used to unload here on the hill. Yep, gonna unload up on the hill. He's looking to snipe those shuttles. He goes in, snipes the shuttle, snipes the second shuttle, snipes the third shuttles. And one shuttle almost makes it through, but the shuttle gets taken down by those Goliaths. Now that's just Corsairs. Corsairs don't do much at all. And now these tanks up here on the high ground are going to be taking down those gateways here on the side. So great play once again from Destiny here, aka GoldSCV. And JH finally unloading some units up on the high ground, gets a good storm off, but that storm is not enough. Now it's up to the Zealot, but those raids here, taking down the Zealot, taking down the shuttles. Those raids are now defending the tanks up on the high ground, and now the frontal push is going to be moving out for GoldSCV here. Can JH fight this off, because he's got no carriers. Carriers are on the way now though, but those tanks will be able to waltz through this entire portion here before those carriers finish production. More units being unloaded on the hill outside of the range of those raids. But by the time those Zealots reach those tanks, the Zealots are pretty much almost dead. Another frontal attack happens, the frontal portion of the fight, but he's unloading tanks up on the hill. Builds himself a huge advantage over JH here, because now he's got his entire portion here sieged up with tanks that JH cannot reach thanks to those raids. Very quickly taking down those shuttles there, making sure no units can be unloaded on top of the tanks, but the units have already been unloaded. And JH is honestly out of options here, because he's lost the front, he's losing this side here. His gateway unit production capability has pretty much just gone down by about 6 gateways there on the side. Now it's Goliath streaming in as well. Carriers have finished up, it's only 5 carriers. He does have observers here though, so the raids will be taken down by those carriers, but more Goliaths are on the way, I assume. Call of Goliaths here, got a Goliath queued up. No extra raids have been made. It's just very comfortably pumping and attacking at the same time. The macro is on point. The control is on point as well with those raids. And JH still has his gateways units rallied into those tanks, so that's kind of hurting him as well. But more carriers on the way, but this is going to take a lot of time. A lot of time, at least 35 more seconds before those carriers are out and about. Maybe even 40 seconds, I'm not too sure on the exact timing. But those 5 carriers are not going to make much of a difference here. They're not going to make much of a difference. He goes for the observers first. Got them both with the scan. Well, that's a great pickup. Now those raids can cloak. These carriers are forced to stay within the cannon range, because if they go up too far, the cloak is just gonna destroy those carriers. And you can at most fire on those tanks here on the outer lines, but not much can be done. Corsairs being mixed in, because Corsairs are amazing against stacked raids. But it might be too late for those Corsairs, because JH is bleeding out. Already lost the entire front portion of his base, has no control over that area anymore. You could even say he doesn't have control over this and this either, because those tanks are hammering away. Some of those Zealots that are spawning are getting some damage down on those tanks, but nothing significant. Turrets being placed here, because those turrets, if you mass turrets in between your tanks, they are amazing against interceptors. They pretty much function as a wraith, pretty much, although you cannot really target fire them. And now the Corsairs took down the raids. More carrier. Oh, this one is unpowered. More carriers are on the way. The carrier count is quite small. 8 carriers. And a lot of Goliaths are now on the way. All those turrets here are taking on those interceptors way too quick. He does have some nice upgrades on those carriers, but nothing to write home about, because those Goliaths here on 222, tanks on 2-2. And oh, the carrier is forced to pull back once again, because the interceptor count has gone down too much. As you can see, there's pretty much no interceptors left. The interceptors leaving the carriers, but get taken down by those turrets and the Goliaths pretty much instantly once they leave. Well, that's really hurting him tremendously. More tanks streaming in, and the game is over. It means the score is now 3-2. I mean, he hasn't called the GG yet, but he's definitely going to call the GG. There's no way to come out of this. And this is also really showing how much that rule is impacting the Protoss in their ability to fight back, really. Or maybe he just had really poor carrier timing, really poor draw play. Maybe it's a mixture of things. Maybe GoldSCV just played this absolutely perfectly into the tiniest of details. He played this perfectly. No weakness, pretty much, in GoldSCV's play here. Or maybe a poor execution of the game plan by JH. Or maybe GoldSCV made it look very poor. Nonetheless, The game is over. JH is just extending the game here. There's so many turrets being built there. Great disruption webs, but they're not gonna do much. Yeah, just gonna wait until this is over, and so we can move into the next game. He's just wasting time at this point because he's salty. Right, calls a GG. Game is over. I've pretty much said everything that I can say, I wanted to say about that game. And here in the statistics, we can really see how much he did. Pretty much dealt no damage to the Terran. This is really the epitome of dealing no damage. Well, almost 1/4 of the units killed. Same here, a third. Well, a little bit less than half of the buildings raised. So he never actually threatened GoldSCV at any point in the game. GoldSCV was safe from start to finish. And he needed less minerals, needed to spend less, because that's just the nature of Terran versus Protoss. Terran preserves units, Protoss throws them away in droves. Yeah, and let's throw up one of these images again. Let's just use this one with the nice EAPM in there. It's just for the sake of clickbait, pretty much. Alright, so going into game number 6. And yeah, JH gets the pick again. Or maybe GoldSCV gets the pick, I'm not too sure. Anyway, they're back to Protoss versus Terran. And this time JH is on the Terran. GoldSCV is on the Protoss. So let's see whether GoldSCV can turn it around. I mean, not the series, because he's already leading the series 3-2. But I mean, whether he can turn around that one game that he lost on Protoss earlier in this series that JH managed to win over him. Let's see whether he can turn that around and turn this Protoss versus Terran into a win. Because last time around, he honestly had a really good shot, but he cut a lot of corners, and cutting corners against JH in specifically the Terran versus Protoss matchup, which I think is JH's best matchup, or so he says himself. He says that it's his best matchup. You cannot cut corners against a Terran versus Protoss specialist. And also to note, JH himself says that his Protoss versus Terran is not that good. And we might have already seen the result of that in 2 losses that he had playing Protoss versus Terran. Whereas GoldSCV is pretty much one of the Protoss specialists on fastest map. He is one of the specialists. One of the best Protoss players on fastest map in the world. Even if you take into consideration all the pro players. Oh, I forgot to take away the image. Let's do that quick, because I don't want to ruin the game. So I fast forwarded the game to 2:30, and yeah, nothing of importance was missed. So +1 Nexus, well, Pylon, Nexus, Forge, Pylon in the front, Gateway, 2 cannons in the front, gas, cybernetics core, and a bit of scouting, and just to once again rectify my mistake of keeping that image up. GoldSCV is Destiny, playing the red Protoss, and JH is 100perwinner, playing the blue Terran here on the middle right of the map. And he is doing a little bit of a delayed +2 command center. He went for those 3 barracks, but the 3 barracks do give him more offensive potential, as he's planning on doing, because he's going for an academy quite early. And it's just going to ball up his Marines very slowly. And add on medics into the mix, get the stim upgrade. But this time around, GoldSCV, having learned from his past mistakes, only a couple of games ago, instead of making 2 cannons, he makes 3 cannons. And which might just make the difference. There's the second gateway. And he's making a Citadel of Dune right after the robotics facility. And a Tempest archive. So So he's changed his game plan from a couple of games ago. He's not going for the risky part, for the risky option. He's going for a more secure option. Now he's got Dark Templars to fall back on. If JH just managed to break through the front, he's trying to touch and feel whether he can go for some harass, but he sees that he cannot. Sees the Marines there in the front. JH forces them away, keeping GoldSCV contained inside of his base. Stim upgrade is on the way, Engineering Bay being added on as well for those turrets that he needs against Dark Templars. If he does decide to go for the offensive move. Barrack number 4, which does imply that he's going for offensive play, an aggressive play with those Marines and medics. He's not going to try to camp this one out. There's a very defensive depot for a depot wall being constructed already. Factory is finished, machine shop is to be expected. Double scan can be coming out soon, although he's going to start with one, then this one right after this one finishes, so we can scan with this one first. And he's going to use that scan to scan the front here. So he knows what is going on there in the front. I'm just going to keep it highlighted so you can see the energy go down once the scan happens. You see, I'm going to have to wait for more Marines. Alright, there's the scan. You see, he scanned the front here, sees the Dark Templar, knows he's got to pull away, sees the 4 cannons, so he knows he cannot go for the offensive move there. And it's actually 2 Dark Templars, and a turret is being made really quickly. The turret will finish just around the same time those Dark Templars reach this point, so no threat there. No threat there, I say, and it is true, no threat there. So the Dark Templars pull away, and they're just going to stay here on the middle of the map to be a threat for anything that moves out from JH's base. So JH is being contained by those Dark Templars. GoldSCV just now has to make sure those Dark Templars don't die to a scan and a stim Marine rush. And at the same time, he's going for the single Reaver frontal push. But there's no speeded Zealots in the mix. So that means he's going to pick up those Dark Templars, I assume, and drop them somewhere inside of JH's base. Or is he going to go for the fake and try to hammer away on the turret? He's going to hammer away the turret. That's a smart adaptation, because now he can use this Dark Templar to hammer away on the depot. Smart thinking from GoldSCV here, but there's the scan. Dark Templar pulls back very quickly. That's an insanely fast reaction from GoldSCV there. So Reaver's going to fly in over the top side. He's hunting for the shuttle, but he sees that there's no shuttle there. So the Zealots are just pulling back. Now the scan comes down and the Dark Templars pull back from the front. That's actually a really smart choice there to take down that turret with the Reaver. Now there's a shuttle coming in over the top side. Shuttle gets sniped. Reaver gets on the low ground. Reaver doesn't get Reaver gets shut off. But then eventually does die. But there's already another Reaver, a Templar, and a Zealot being flown over the map. The frontier is still being harassed by the 2 Dark Templars, but now there's a turret up, so the Dark Templars can no longer harass that portion. But now he's unloading. Templar gets a storm off. Templar kills 8 of those. Oh, he kills the remaining of the SCVs with the Reaver. Oh my god, that was... JH pretty much went for the worst possible of options. Instead of sending those SCVs up, away from the Reaver, sends them into the Reaver, and GoldSCV just made magic happen. Although JH played into it, I mean, the drop itself is already good. Killing 8 of those SCVs is already a good start. But then, pretty much feeding him with a spoon all those SCVs, oh Jesus, that's gotta hurt. I was really liking the frontal abuse there though. That's really smart. So alright, drop coming in over the top side. Real quick scan on his base, an extra robotic facility, a 4th robotic facility. Corsairs with this one. Yeah, Templar energy. A lot of cannons, not too much going on there. He's adding on a lot more gateways. Corsairs to help those shuttles fly into the base. Let's see when this is going to go in. Is he going to wait for 2 drops at the same time? Because that's honestly his specialty. Juggling between 2 shuttle groups at the same time and microing them both at the same time. Tank drop coming in here. Is he going to get those probes? He flies in. Probes being pulled really early, really quickly. And the probes are pretty much outside of the range of those tanks. He does get a shut off, but he kills only 7 probes. So great quick pull from GoldSCV there. Securing his own probes. Denying JH the much needed comeback that he needs. Because this game is looking very bad. He's going for the front. He's going for the front. He's just dropping behind enemy lines, going for the front. Going to clear out all the ground units there. It doesn't have Zealot speed yet, but it doesn't need the Zealot speed to clear out the front here. There's no Templars in. There was a Templar in the mix, but the Templar didn't do much. And this is going to cost JH a lot of units. A lot of units that he cannot afford to lose because he lost all of his SCVs. He's already back on 39 SCVs though. So he managed to rebuild a little bit, but now a real drop is going to be coming in over the bottom side of the map. JH already moving a couple of his Marines back because he knows that a real drop is coming soon. But I really like the idea there. I really like the idea of dropping those units on the choke there, but it didn't get the results that he needed. But now the drop comes in, gets a storm off on a couple of Marines, then another Templar in the range, and he gets a storm off on those SCVs, and 11 SCVs go down. Well, that's more than I thought he'd get, because those SCVs started moving away, but a couple of them clipped into the mineral patch. That didn't work out all too well, but another drop coming over the top side here. The pressure is immense. He's not giving... Another storm came down because he kept the Templar hidden in one of those shuttles. And this... Oh, he's dropping Reavers outside of the range of the tanks and the Marines. He's going to be microing them away from the Marines. And he's going to kill all the Marines here on the low ground. And the Reavers staying alive. Amazing micro here from GoldSCV. JH is pretty much in the most dire of situations there. Only on sub 100 minerals. And he gets another shot off on a couple of SCVs there. But doesn't get a shot off on... The SCV still alive on the patch. There's no more Reavers there alive. There's still a Templar here on the low ground. That's on the bottom side. But this tank will definitely be able to one-shot it once it does decide to move up. Or two-shot it. But I don't think it will get a storm off. Another drop already being sent out. The pressure is being kept up. The pressure is absolutely insane. The control is on the next level. GoldSCV is showing us why he is one of the top players here. Now he's unloading on the front once again. He's really switching up target selection here, keeping the pressure up on every single side of JH's base. They're not just going for one part, they're going for every single weakness that is exposed. Now clearing out the low ground here, thanks to the help of all those zealots behind enemy lines. Marines being chased around, but there's pretty much no reinforcements for JH because JH's minerals have been getting hit non-stop, time and time again. Breaking through the front, breaking through the bunkers, the front is gone. And JH is now completely fully exposed. And now knowing that he doesn't need to shuttle any more units in, GoldSCV is deciding to just send in streams and streams of units because he can just keep up the macro and out-macro JH and slowly run him over. That's the plan here. He doesn't need those shuttles anymore. He's just going to send them in. Although he's sending over 2 Reavers just in case, but the game is effectively already over because these zealots are enough to kill JH. JH knows it. JH calls GG. JH has been decimated completely. And this is how GoldSCV won DDukkarandom's 1 vs 1 anonymous tournament by beating JH 4-2 in honestly an amazing display of skill in a lot of these games. Specifically this last game, I was really honestly amazed by the creativity of some of those moves that he did there. I have never seen that specific frontal Dark Templar harass that he did. Wouldn't even have thought of it ever. Wouldn't even be able to pull it off because it takes such a fast reaction to those scans. It was amazing to watch. The Reaver Shuttle Micro on the top here, oh, that was also really good stuff. But honestly, there was a lot going on in very rapid succession. No wonder the guy's playing on 340 APM average in this game. No wonder the guy has average 250 EAPM without spamming ever. Because that's how you get 250 EAPM, no spamming. And honestly, GoldSCV really showing us why he is one of the elite Protoss players, or elite Terran players, or elite fastest map players in the world. This was a really solid, amazing game. So yeah, he won himself, I think $150 in this tournament. So great play, amazing skill. And hope to be seeing more of you in the future, GoldSCV. You really showed that you are the supreme. So yeah, I'm going to be tuning out here. Thanks for watching the video. It's a little bit long. Most of my videos have been a little bit long. I've been trying to follow a little bit of feedback that I got from a player. And I tried to follow that feedback by he basically said like, talk a little bit more about strategy, about general ideas, about things that are going on a broader scale, instead of focusing on the smaller things like Marines or units moving around. And I also think that was really great advice because I was somewhat aware of it, that I wasn't really focusing on the broader stuff, all that much. I was sometimes getting lost in the small movements, Marines dying, units dying here and there. So I hope that this was to your satisfaction, because I really do want feedback. Feedback is an amazing way to learn and improve, and I honestly just want to improve and keep on improving into infinity and beyond, and make sure that you always keep coming back for more StarCraft fastest map content. Mostly 1 versus 1 apparently. I'll be throwing in a 2 versus 2 sometime in the near future. Don't worry about that one. Anyway, I'm going to tune out here. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. And don't forget to slap like. To slaps like. Yeah, I messed that one up. I'm just going to cringe my way out of here.